Hello there, Josh here from Racing to Profit. Hopefully you can hear me, see me as well in the bottom right hand corner. This video, what am I going to do? I'm going to look back at the 2:15 from Fairy House on Saturday and focus on Daly Tiger, with the idea of looking back and reviewing to see if we can spot anything, or I can spot anything to apply to my handicap chase thinking and analysis moving forwards. And for those of you who like picking out your own winners or looking at races to find your own bets, especially in handicap chases, hopefully I may say something of utility that you can apply to your own thinking if you don't already. For those of you who like stats and systems and micro angles, I am going to then jump over to horse race space, where I did a bit of digging into Noel Mead's numbers to see if I could find any angle for the future as a kind of way in, especially in muddy handicap chases. Because he's kind of gone on a bit of a resurgence in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, it seems, or is kind of doing better in any case. Those on the blog and members will know I tipped Pont Avon, one of 4 seconds for the big race tips on Saturday, which I've just about got over. This one on another day, I'm not going to actually show the race replays. On another day, if he'd had ironically settled better than his stable, as well as his stablemate, who was fractious down to the start, but then switched off through the race and had a decent position on the rail, if they'd have kind of swapped positions and he'd have dropped his head like his stablemate, he and Daly Tiger would have had a ding-dong battle over the last. As it was, if you watch it back, he was a bit too keen. I thought he was poorly positioned. He was stuck wide for most of the way. The jockey, after 2 out, was a bit motionless, as Sean Flanagan was just starting to get stuck into Daly Tiger, and then he got going a bit too late and fluffed the last, and that was game over really. But that's racing. Both of those horses are worth keeping on side, and especially Pont Avon has to have a handicap win in him somewhere, kind of 17 furlongs through to maybe 2 miles 4, not impossible, but a strongly run 17 furlongs in softish ground seems to be no problem at all. So if you want one for your notebook, he might be too obvious an eye-catcher next time. We'll see what the market does. But this form, as it turns out, has a solid look to it. What are the kind of things I want to highlight first of all? Well, I should mention Chatham Street Lad, who we know dotted up at Cheltenham. He was ridden, I mean, this was a drop back in trip, which I'm not 100% sure. Yes, he got away with it at Cork, but off 128. I'm not sure this drop back in trip was ideal, and he was ridden a lot more aggressively than he had been on his previous 2 starts for a jockey riding him for the first time. I'm not sure if he liked that. I think he may have possibly done too much, and that's actually a theme to focus on. Daly Tiger, I was a bit too dismissive when I was looking through this. I suppose the Willie Mullins record in the race for recent years was the way in. He'd kind of won it 5 times, and as well as his recent form. And I thought his one may be better handicap now, but I've, well, sort of got that wrong. What put me off, I suppose, what I'll start with if I jump over to the profiler tool here, and this is in GG's Gold. As many of you will know, have watched previous videos, I kind of jump between this and Horse Race Base. I want to find Daly Tiger, don't I? His record fresh. Where are we? If I go down here, as you can see here, all of his wins had come on his seasonal return, or with 121 to 365 days off. As you can see, they're a perfect 4 from 4. Now, you do get some horses who only ever run well fresh. This was his first win, although he'd had a couple of places kind of on second, third start of the season. Maybe, well, I think I kind of did look at that, and that was the reason, I think, in my head for this poor performance here. But a bit like why Chatham Street Lad didn't run well in this race is a possible excuse for Fairy House. And I saw some article I think after Daly Tiger's win here, with some quotes from Noel Mead, which were fascinating, because he said on that drop back to 16 furlongs at Fairyhouse the time before, the jockey rode to instructions, which were to be further forward because of the drop back in trip, but they were far too aggressive. And he's basically gone too hard, too early, near the front of the speed, and raced out of his comfort zone. And that is the reason, doing too much out of your comfort zone cruising speed, especially as a chaser, too much too early, too near a decent pace. And that was the reason for why during the kind of final third of the race he dropped back and really struggled. That's the kind of thing that's interesting to me, I think, as you try and look back and try and think of things you could think about or do differently when analysing handicap chases, especially with the profile of Daly Tiger. At the kind of most basic, I suppose, he hasn't just gone out of form arguably as quickly as he's come into it, although I'm saying that now with hindsight. Like I said, with that record 4 from 4 fresh, it wasn't impossible to think he had to be caught fresh, but he's clearly put such thinking to bed now after this performance last time out. But there we have a standout performance, career best. He's only 8. He was 7 at the time, of course, that he ran here at Punchestown. Still open to improvement and development as a handicap chaser, 7, 8, 9. You know, a lot of Gigginstown horses can be slow maturers, and many of them are bought obviously for the chasing game. This one in particular has taken a while to get going, but here we have, you know, a superb run, a career best. He came into this off a mark of 137. He posted an RPR of 152, and you know, I've talked about those in previous videos as well. Some indication against the mark they ran off that they may be well handicapped and have something in hand. Which of course is what we're always looking for, and that kind of more unexposed profile, more to come, is generally the place you want to focus, but there's not always horses like that in handicap chases that you look at. So there we had a very good performance on seasonal return, an RPR which suggested his new mark of 147 was workable, especially given this, you know, that was only his second handicap chase when winning there. We then had some hot form, this then what feature, which is great in GGs. If I just click this now, this was another part of the puzzle, and you know, that learning point of not being put off by one bad run, which I seem to make an easy enough excuse for without thinking about possibly why they ran badly. And like I said, was it something in their running style? You know, other excuses can be a horse bounced, the race came too quickly, etc. So if a horse has ran well and then ran poorly, try and think about, or I need to try and think about more, why the reasons for that, what were the reasons for that, and they can obviously be numerous. Of course, you get some horses who are just inconsistent, but one of the reasons for why you would put more emphasis on that winning form and that winning seasonal return, yes, we've got the big RPR, but then we've got the hot form. Obviously, he's since followed up here, but Tornado Flyer had, so he, where is Tornado Flyer? Yeah, so on his next start, he came second to Min in that Grade 1 at Punchestown. Obviously, he came into this race off a mark of 150, and Daly Tiger won this fairly comfortably. Tornado Flyer looks to have run his race as well over this trip. And then we had Castlebourne West, so he gave some handicapping substance. So we had some kind of graded substance with Tornado Flyer. Castlebourne West, who he beat comfortably. I'm not sure if he was on seasonal return in this race. Let me just have a look. But that could be a reason for why. Yes, so this was his first run in 248 days. But even so, you know, that was a running on effort, and it's good to see unexposed horses, handicap chasers, beating fellow unexposed handicap chasers who then go on to win. And he went on and hacked up in a deep Leopardstown 3-mile handicap chase, up in class, an RPR of 160. So this form obviously had some substance. Farclas also some substance there, third in that same race at Leopardstown. So suddenly you have a picture there of, I suppose, more reasons to try and find an excuse for this run. And when you have bad runs, of course, that makes their price next time out. They can be put in at much bigger odds. And as we can see here, it's twice now he's gone off at 22s and 20s, which again, linking to kind of the Knollmead and Gigginstown operation with this trainer in particular, clearly the market can't be much of an indication. As to their chance. So that's another thing to kind of note. If we just look at Daly Tiger's profile overall, that sort of profile you like, I suppose. Lightly raced, unexposed over fences. Of course, he was 2 from 8 going into this race, where I kind of, like I said, overlooked him clearly a bit too quickly. But some of this form down here is clearly decent. He knows how to win. He's now 5 from 14, 7 places, keeping those multiple winners on side while they're still progressive. Isn't a bad thing, and again, another reason to overlook a kind of dud run and look and try and see if there was a legitimate excuse for such a performance. Connections ran him in graded races. That's always interesting. In graded novice races, it can be some indication of what Connections think about the horse, whether or not they like him, and he might not necessarily be fulfilling potential at this stage. But in your mind, you've got the thinking: will he at some point, if he strengthens up, develops, grows, will he be turned into a decent horse? They ran him at Cheltenham in the novice handicap chase there that Imperial Aura won. Knollmead wouldn't be one to send too many to Cheltenham again. That might be some kind of indication of what they thought of him. While I'm here, actually, because that's clocked in my mind, especially for handicap hurdlers, if the Irish, hopefully, they're all allowed over, but that's a debatable point, whether that's a good thing or not, especially the handicappers. I would be surprised if the Grade 1 horses aren't allowed over. It's more, I assume, the people that have to come over with the kind of masses of horses that come and hundreds of people over to look after them, obviously, for Cheltenham, but fingers crossed. It's as normal as festival as possible from the kind of racing perspective. But yeah, looking at those unexposed horses that have graded form, novice graded form, small fields, and then run in handicaps at festivals, bigger fields, stronger pace, sometimes better ground, that's a kind of profile to look for as well. So especially in Ireland, horses that have gone close or run well in grade 1, grade 2, novice hurdles in particular that might be rated in the kind of 130s, 140s, well beaten but may have travelled well for a long time. They can often turn into kind of crawls and sprints, but then get to race in a handicap, probably from a mark a lot lower than reflects their ability, and they transform both for the handicap, bigger field, stronger pace, better ground sometimes as well, and of course that may have been a seasonal plan, especially if those graded novice hurdles have worked out well, for example. So that's an aside as I kind of diverge there, but yeah, some things there to just note about Daly Tiger. Decent form, knows how to win, unexposed, an indication of what Connections think because the race is running, a high level of decent form, a return here. The RPRs indicating he was well handicapped, the hot form and what horses had done in behind indicating it was a strong race, it was strong form, and further giving evidence to how well handicapped he was. And then trying to think about what was the excuse for this run. Drop back in trip, in it, well, a claiming jockey on board, slightly change of tactics. Sean Flanagan was much more patient on this run here. He switched the horse off, put him in behind the pace midfield, as he did at Fairyhouse, switched him off, possibly a stronger pace, but he was asked to do too much too soon. He chased, he was kind of in third after 2 fences. You could see he was probably over racing a bit, and he was being asked to kind of travel out of his comfort zone a bit more, and that's what told, and that's what made him drop back. So that's the kind of one of the legitimate excuses we can think of for a bad run in terms of the tactics and how the horse was asked to run through the race. So that's something to kind of take away and learn from there. So hopefully I may have said something useful in terms of a sort of profile, obviously not just for Ireland and Irish handicap chasers, but very much for over in the UK as well. But yes, definitely Daly Tiger, he may well be leaving handicaps behind now. It looks like he could still strengthen out and develop more. He's won twice at 20s in handicap chases, so probably missed the boat there. But we can try and learn something for that for moving forwards. Trying to think of other excuses. Obviously, the track, distance, ground, the race coming too soon after a seasonal return, that can be an excuse for a dud run. The race generally just coming too soon on the back of a hard effort, that can be a reason for a blowout, so a bit of a longer break. Change in jockey class, maybe depth of opposition. There's sometimes headgear switches and everything else. There's various different things we can think about. But yes, when you've had a horse and put in a stonking performance, not necessarily a win, they can be running on, they can be a placed effort, also in the race has worked out well, and then follows up with a dud. Let's not assume that they're suddenly gone out of form as quickly as they've gone in it, and can we find an excuse for that? Point Avon, add to the notebook. He's got a handicap in him. He ran to an RPR of 142 here. That's a career best, I think. I'd like to think he's got something in hand when it all clicks. He needs switching off, strong pace, preferably not racing 5 wide for the whole race, learning to drop his head or being on his best behaviour. But he's unexposed, lightly raced, and Willie Mullins will surely find something for him. So that's kind of thinking on that race. What else do I want to say? Yeah, I'm going to jump over to horse race base now, actually, which is where I kind of do a lot of my system research. Although this particular system, or micro angle, I should say, not really a system, you can do in GGs as well with the query tool. I'm just a creature of habit with horse race base on the research front. But yes, I've done a bit of digging. You can note down these rules, do what you want with them. Mead has a lot of horses that seem to be bred for deep winter ground, or in any case they seem to handle that best, whether or not it's just because he targets the main winter season, but certainly looks like the types of horses he has. Standard handicap chases, not novice handicaps, although probably more so on a horse by horse basis, but soft through to heavy, and horse race base, and especially in Ireland you can get the soft to heavy description, so covering those bases, soft to heavy. Handicap chases, that resurgence, they're not too bad a couple of years before, but this seems to be when it's really clicked for me, and certainly with Sean Flanagan riding, you can see the stats here, small numbers of course, but that's a micro angle, given the kind of races and the level of handicap chaser they're running in. Generally they're pretty good stats. They're performing well above market expectations, especially at Betfair, 2.73. So yes, you can see the win percentage there. Place percentage is always a decent indication. This is an all class of races. You can see the record there, 34 qualifiers, 8 wins, 14 have won or placed. That's solid, and given the connections and team, 6 of those winners are for Gigginstown. They've still got quite a few young horses coming through, although of course they're easing off a bit these days. One of those winners is for JP. I should just mention, when all the same rules but without Sean Flanagan riding is 2 from 29, 6 places -10. Although if one of them is for JP, of course he has his own jockeys. So, of course, don't necessarily be put off because Sean Flanagan isn't on. The other thing I will highlight, Mead seems to kind of, if they're going to win, they're going to do it pretty early on in the season. If I look at horse runs in this season, that's obviously from the kind of 1st of May through to the end of April. Not too bad, 3+, but this is more of a positive case. You look at those with 0 to 2 runs this season, those same rules as you can see in front of you: Mead, Flanagan, handicap chases, soft through to heavy, including soft to heavy, since the start of 2018, 6 from 15, 9 places. So that's interesting enough. We can do, just to finish, I can look at the horses responsible for such performances. Of course, you want to make sure it's not just one horse responsible for all wins. Daly Tiger is now the first multiple winner in that. You can see some of the others down there. Some of these have only had kind of one run in such conditions in the period. Hopefully some of those may be open to further improvement also. So with any luck, this is a micro angle, certainly is a useful way in, but over the next 2 or 3 seasons may tick along. So as I tick round to 20 minutes, which is long enough for a video like this, hopefully I have said something across those kind of 2 points, looking back at that race, looking back at Daly Tiger, and indeed this stats angle in front of you. But with that said, thanks for watching. Of course, any comments do post below the video if you're watching this on YouTube or on the blog. There's various links below as well on YouTube. You can take a trial of GG's Gold, of course, if you so wish. £1 for 30 days, I think, still excellent piece of kit, which kind of does everything. And yeah, various different options. But yes, I will be quiet now and say thanks for watching. Best of luck with any bets through the week as always. And for now, this is Josh saying bye. Yeah, thanks for watching and see you soon.